Welcome back to Farage with me, Martin Daubney. Now, many people think that Sharia councils in Britain are undermining the rule of law. And a damning new report out today exposes shocking failures, including their mishandling of domestic violence cases and overreach into child custody disputes, all while leaving many Muslim women unaware of their actual legal rights under British law. Now, how has this parallel system of so-called justice been allowed to take root in the United Kingdom? And is it time to call time on it? Well, I'm joined now in the studio by the authors of the report, the head of domestic policy at the Pickthall House, and that's Jacob Williams, and the think tank's director, Mustafa Warsi. Gentlemen, welcome to the show. I'll start with you, if I could, Jacob Williams. Many people watching this show will think there are 85 Sharia courts in the UK, and many will think they have no place being here whatsoever. So tell us about the main findings of your report.
This report has shown that these Sharia courts are councils that operate as voluntary arbitration tribunals. And I want to stress that, first of all, although there are many abuses and many problems, the principle under English common law, confirmed in the 1996 Arbitration Act, is very simple, that all British citizens have the right to conduct alternative dispute resolutions. They have the right to go to voluntary tribunals that may or may not have a religious ethos. But these tribunals have absolutely no legal authority. They are not courts, and our report is very clear that if they refer to themselves as courts or imply they have legal authority, that should not be permitted. OK, Mustafa Warsi, let's bring you in at this point. In which case, what's the point of them? If they are, beneath British law in terms of the legal hierarchy, which they should be, then why do they even exist at all? Surely it's time just to get rid of them.
It is important to recognize that there are lots of different, Britain is an incredibly diverse country. There are lots of different people that hold a whole host of moral and social views, have a range of beliefs about how best to organize their own lives and the lives of their families most meaningfully. A significant section of those people believe that Sharia courts, or Sharia councils rather, do in fact provide a service insofar as it helps them organize their lives in a way that best accords with their deepest held beliefs. Now, while it might be the case that this results in injustice at times, that by itself, the fact that there exists injustice, or the fact that there exist particular instances where bad things have happened, does not contradict the general principle that in a liberal society, people should in fact be free to organize as they like.
But we're a liberal society within reasons. We have rule of law, we have supremacy of British law. There are manifest occasions where we've heard of Sharia courts, councils, call them what you like, being misogynistic, blatantly favouring men, giving women little say. That's totally contrary to what we stand for in terms of British values.
So if it is ever the case that cases emerge where women have in fact been abused or crimes have been committed, and in fact their legal rights have been contravened, then it sort of doesn't really matter whether or not this is a Muslim woman that has received advice from a Sharia court or otherwise. It could be somebody from a totally different community. If there is in fact a crime that has been committed...
But there are courts for other communities. There's a British court which has supremacy.
But it doesn't matter.
There are no courts for Catholics.
They're called diocesan tribunals. They're also courts...
But they're not supreme to British law.
Well, neither are Sharia councils. None of them are, nor should they be.
You're making a case for Sharia courts in Britain. Why?
I'm making a case for Sharia councils. I defend the rights of all British citizens to conduct the basic principle of voluntary arbitration if they wish to. What's very important, however, is that it's genuinely voluntary, so that we actually ensure that women are aware of their legal rights, that Sharia councils have an obligation to inform them of their legal rights, and that if there are issues of communication...
But Muslim women, we hear all the time, are living under a patriarchy. The Muslim elders, all the laws are made by men. Am I wrong?
Well, you're sounding like a bit of a woke feminist there. I'm not sure how far...
What are you talking about? I'm talking about women's rights being dictated to them by men.
I'm talking about the rights of both women and men to make their own choices. Now, we can't assume that a woman, just because she's a Muslim, is unable to make free choices. However, where
you think they have free choices under Sharia courts? You think women have equality under Sharia courts?
I think that women have equality under British law, and I think women's equality under British law needs to be protected. You're going to take away a basic right from all British citizens, be they Muslims, Catholics, Jews, or anyone else, if you abolish these things. What's very important is that women who choose to use these must have their rights made known to them, and where there is abuse, this must be dealt with by the full force of the law.
But is that feasible? I mean, we have a grooming gang scandal, a rape gang scandal at the moment, where we have a total fear to intervene in these matters, a total fear of British authorities to stamp down on any perceived inequalities, even when they blatantly emerge. It's for the birds to suggest that British lawmakers will go in and exact supremacy when they're too afraid to go in for fear of being called Islamophobic.
Well, you raise a very legitimate point. We don't know exactly what's happened in all of these towns where grooming gangs occurred, but we do support a full, comprehensive national inquiry to find out exactly what has gone wrong and how to put it right. So there may well be cases where, for fear of racial sensitivity or accusations of Islamophobia, authorities have not acted rightly. This is the failure of Britain to enforce the rule of law, and we absolutely support a change.
In which case, I'll go back to my original point, Mustafa Warsi, if we have a British rule of law, which hasn't even been adequate enough to protect people in this country, particularly young white working class girls, why on earth do we need a Sharia law? I mean,
I would suggest
we already have laws.
I would suggest that we do have laws, but I would suggest that the problems are not, in fact, legal. They're political, they're sociological, they're failures to apply the law. So in the case of the grooming gangs, for example, Pickthall House's general position that it's absolutely deplorable. It's a failure of society insofar as a result of a fear of being called Islamophobic, heinous injustice has not adequately been dealt with with the full weight of the law.
So surely allowing the Muslim community to effectively control itself through its own councils, its own courts, its own law gives cover.
I would say that Muslims are not special. Muslims are just people like all other people, and that if they break the law, they should be punished. If they do not break the law, as often happens when people go to voluntary tribunals for all sorts of advice, then they should be left alone, just as all other people are in fact left alone. Nevertheless, it is in fact the case that if we start drawing lines about what sort of social organization is permitted and what is not permitted, then this echoes exactly the sort of censoriousness and government and state overreach that a lot of people have decried, for example, on this channel about the woke left.
But the woke left don't have their own courts that take rights away from women. You compare apple with pears.
But I would say that neither do the Muslims. The Muslims don't have their own courts. They, in fact,
do. There are 85 Sharia courts. That's the point.
Well, they're voluntary arbitration tribunals. That's the problem here. And we need to just ensure that they don't act as courts. They don't pretend to be courts. That's the reform we're calling for.
But are you certain that's what's going on? And more to the point...
No, we're not. That's why this report exists. There are real problems. I'm not trying to paper over this.
So what do we do about them? When there are clear problems where we see that men are dictating terms, women... Your own report says women are unaware often of their rights under British law. What do we do about that?
Well, we need to make them aware of their rights. And any of these councils that operate legally should be obliged to inform women of their legal rights under British law. Otherwise, there's no genuine free choice. Moreover, when there's a case of abuse, something that's already illegal under British law, the Sharia Council has to have an obligation to report that to the relevant authorities, the same way that a secular councillor has a duty of care to report cases of abuse that they're aware of.
But do you think they will actually do it? Do you think that if the British law says, Imam, who's in charge of the Sharia court, you must have full transparency, do you think they'll do that?
I can't speak for every single Imam, every single council across the country. That isn't the point. The point... What I'm calling on is for the British government and the British law to enforce its basic values and ensure that transparency is upheld.
Okay, and that would agree. Thank you, Jacob Williams, Head of Domestic Policy, and Mustafa Warsi. Thank you very much for joining us on tonight's show. A very illuminating debate. Thank you.